Alright, our second round matchup is the Boston Celtics, and I'll talk about that in a second, but real quick, if you missed the last episode, please be sure to check that out. I had to re-upload it, which killed it in the algorithm, so go watch that if you have not yet. It was our first round matchup versus the Magic, and it's important for the context of being in the second round. But the Celtics, well, this was the team last year that beat us in the conference finals, and they really beat us. If you don't remember, we lost in 5. They just obliterated us. So I'm pretty damn worried about this series. Luckily though, there is a pretty big difference between this year's team versus last year's. See, the Celtics series really exposed to me how weak our shot creation was, because Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum on the perimeter made life hell for CJ. We got to a point in the playoffs where we were heavily relying on Gary Trent to pick up the slack, and he did a good job, but it just was not good enough to carry the overall team. This time though, we of course have Paul George, who will also face that very good perimeter defense, but shouldn't struggle as much. But more importantly, it's another option that we didn't previously have. Let's talk matchups. This Celtics team has had one big change. Marcus Smart is no longer with the team, and that's rather huge, but he has been replaced by Aaron Nesmith, who has taken a big leap. He is now an 81 overall and a fantastic 3-and-D player. Other than that though, it's still basically Kemba, Brown, Tatum as a big 3 with Nurkic and Nesmith to fill out the starting lineup, and then off of the bench they have Tristan Thompson and Otto Porter Jr. So this team is good, and this team is deep. Defensively, I'm putting Holiday on Kemba, Grant on Brown, and Paul George on Tatum. Last year without PG, I had to put Gary Trent on Brown, which was not an ideal matchup, but with PG now, we don't have to worry about that matchup at all. So really, this whole breakdown is essentially that PG makes life much easier for us. On both ends of the court, PG makes me more confident in this matchup. That being said, this team gave us hell last year, so I'm not going to make a prediction really for this series, especially not a confident one. I just think that it could really, it's a coin toss. It could go either way. So let's get into it. All right, game 1 on the Celtics home court, as they had a better record than us this year, which does not inspire confidence. At least last year we did have the home court advantage as we finished with the best record in the NBA. This time around, not so much. And as you can see early, the Celtics are pouring it on right to start. Nothing our defense has been able to do. Whole lot of jump shots drop and pull up there by Jason Tatum. Ben Simmons with the dish to Drew Holiday in the corner for 3. And really this game in general was just jump shot central. So much reliance on jump shots for both parties involved, and for the most part our jump shots were going in, but the Celtics jump shots were going in even more. Last year when we had this matchup, the Celtics were just raining 3-pointers, and that's kind of been the same this time around. Jaylen Brown is an elite 3-point shooter, Jason Tatum is an elite 3-point shooter, Kemba Walker is an elite 3-point shooter, and that is the foundation of their offense. But we have been able to at least semi-match the shooting in this game, but we're really struggling to get in the paint too. And this one I tried to get Ben in the paint, but Nurkic was really fucking with me. And I also had so many jump shot opportunities that like I can't pass that up. I mean, Paul George has 17 in the first half, but just to show how poor our defense has been, we just gave Carson Edwards, who's like 5 foot -3, lane to the basket for a dunk in the half court, which is pretty damn rough. Paul George cannot be blamed for being down in this game because he's been awesome. CJ with the pull-up at the free throw line. CJ's also had a good game. I just really couldn't get it going with Ben Simmons. You saw right there briefly that he only has 4 points to this point, and the Celtics just completely going off was not helping things. So we're down 7 at this point. Carson Edwards, another dunk in our half court. I don't know what the hell is going on with me this game. I just could not play any damn defense. Great defense right there by Ben Simmons, who jumps over Kemba Walker for the block, and then Drew Holiday on the fast break dishes it to Jeremy Grant, who gets the layup. Grant also struggled in this one. I shot like 8 shots with him, and I think he made like 2 of them. Crazy pull-up 3 right there from Jason Tatum. He just makes those. Kemba with the pull-up 3. I mean, normally I would allow that shot because the CPU rarely makes it, but 2 pull-up 3-pointers in a row for the CPU just drop. Tatum gets me with that little step-back hesitation move. Kemba Walker in the post of all things, that gets blocked by Grant, but 3-pointer by Jaylen Brown. I mean, I didn't even bother commentating on the potential of us coming back because I knew it wasn't coming. Just absolutely killed in game 1 by Boston. So to this point, we just simply suck in game 1s because we got killed by the Magic in game 1 as well, and we got killed by the Celtics in this game 1. Hopefully, though, we can turn the series around, and that game 1 was just a rough start. Early on, I get the Kemba versus Ben matchup, which I'm going to have to take advantage of that. Already has as many points as he did by like halftime last time with 4 points already, so that's a nice sign. Paul George with the dish to Ben Simmons, who gets it to CJ for the 3. That was my whole vision with Ben Simmons at center, is that he could be a playmaker as the roll man, and that's exactly what happened right there with the dish to CJ for the 3-pointer. Dish right there to Gary Trent for a 3-pointer of his own. I love it when Gary Trent scores. I show it every time. Right there, 3-pointer from LaMarcus Aldridge in the corner. I'm pretty sure that's actually the first 3-pointer I've hit with him in game, even though I kind of added him to be a 3-point shooter, and he's mostly been a mid-range shooter. Fade away there by Paul George. You'll notice in this game, we've definitely been more in command of our offense, and the Celtics offense has not been as insane. It's still been good as Jaylen Brown gets that 3-pointer, but it has not been just completely laying it on. CJ, of all people, gets a block. And on the break, Grant with the perfect lob to Ben Simmons. That was a beautiful play right there. Jason Tatum misses this mid-range pull-up, and Paul George on the break with Kemba on him. A little step-back move. That 3 drops despite the good contest. Another really good game for Paul George thus far. Paul George, just he's been good for us in the playoffs. Other than that one really bad game versus the Magic, he has been good for us in the playoffs, and that was obviously a concern with Paul George being the player that he is. Step back, a mid-range shot out of the post from there for 12 points. Very, very good game for Paul George here. Ben Simmons on the break. I mean, if you put Kemba in front of the basket, it's not going to end well. I'm lucky that wasn't a charge, though, because you know how much 2K loves to call charges. In 2K21 Next Gen, it's actually fucking exhausting how much they like to call charges. But, I mean, early on, we are really taking the lead here. Paul George gets the first step on Tatum for the dunk off of the Grant pass. He gets the first step on Nesmith for the dunk, and Nurkic is too late to recover. Another first step for the dunk. Nurkic is once again too late to recover, so 3 dunks in a row for Paul George. That was certainly fun to watch. Tatum makes this difficult left-handed hook type thing over the defender. Drive here by Dragic. You may have noticed in this game that I'm not really scoring with anyone except for Paul George, Ben Simmons, and Jaylen Brown. Not Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is on the Celtics. And CJ McCollum. And you'll notice that looking at the end of game stats. CJ right here for 12 points, great 3-pointer, and CJ actually goes on a bit of a run right here. After this dunk by Jason Tatum, you saw that green release 3-pointer, green release pull-up mid-range shot on the baseline, green release 3-pointer in the same spot as earlier, and then one more, he's hot now, green release pull-up mid-range shot. So suddenly he's up to 19 points from 9 where he was, so he had just won a 10-point run right there, which is absolutely beautiful. Ben Simmons with the drive inside. I actually end up, nice block there by Grant, I forgot about that play right there, and then Ben Simmons on the break, he's going to take advantage of that Kemba matchup for another nasty dunk. I mean, it seems like when I'm cutting these highlights, I'm cutting out more and more Ben Simmons plays as we obviously win this game. And here, the team combined for, I believe it was 72 points out of, I think it was 86. Yeah, it was just the big 3 here just completely carry the offense in this one, and an even bigger blowout in game 3. So now we take a 2-1 lead, but I think I was about to say something and then my mind just went completely blank. Oh yeah, I'm cutting Ben Simmons out of the highlights quite a bit just because the way Ben Simmons scores is rather basic and sometimes a little bit cheesy. I have to show it when it's like in a more fancy way than just, hey look, Ben Simmons drove past a slow center. Nice alley-oop play, 2 alley-oop plays in a row there, which is some of the stuff that I'll show because it's more fun. But like in general, most of the way I'm scoring with Ben Simmons is, hey, Yusuf Nurkic cannot, contest this guy at the perimeter. And I wish the CPU would defend Ben Simmons differently and step off of him, but as much as I have tried, I've gone into the opposing CPU settings. I have messed with the defensive CPU's sliders. There's just nothing I can do to get them to defend Ben Simmons as they should. So as a result, I'm having to take advantage of it quite a bit. Very nice dunk right there on Jaylen Brown. Missed there on that 3 by CJ, but Ben Simmons kicks it out to Paul George, who gets the drive inside on Otto Porter, gets Grant Williams to take a step, to jump, which is nice. Grant Williams, by the way, Very good player on the Celtics. Not at all related to this series, but I thought I'd mention it. Great pass there by Ben to find the open Jeremy Grant. Rebound right there off, I believe that was the Tatum miss. And then if no one's going to step up on Paul George, that's an easy 3 points right there. Jaylen Brown out of the pick and roll. Late contest by Paul George. Jaylen Brown driving on Paul George, and he gets this monster dunk as Ben Simmons was... I jumped too early with Ben Simmons. And then Grant with, ironically, Grant Williams on him with the drive. He's a little bit slower, so I figured I could take advantage of that. And then Gary Trent Jr. with the dunk, a play that's not a three-pointer. That is certainly something. Gary Trent scores 99% of his points from behind the three-point line. My dog is barking incredibly loud in the background, but we're just going to ignore that. Gary Trent with the three-pointer. This was the best Gary Trent game I've had in the playoffs thus far. CJ, I was going for a mid-range pull-up, but he wanted the extra point, so I guess I'll be happy with that. I normally don't go for the pull-up three-pointers because they generally do not go in. Sometimes you got to take them, though. And hey, it was a green release there, so that's perfectly fine. Paul George with the drive dishes that back to a trailing Ben Simmons out of the pick and roll. Easy dunk right there. Don't take that shot right there by Paul George, but then just easy drive to the paint. The paint has been wide open in multiple possessions in this game. Lob right there to Ben Simmons as Nurkic was too slow to recover to the backdoor cut. And Kemba's not going to step up on CJ. I'm just going to take the open shot. If you're going to sag off of me like that, I mean, why would I not take advantage of that? Robert Williams gets that rebound. Three-pointer there for Tatum, so it is a relatively close game late. I don't know why the crowd is chanting MVP for Paul George like Ben Simmons didn't win MVP last year, but it's definitely kind of annoying. But 3-1 lead now on the Celtics. Took care of business in this game. Wasn't a blowout like game 2 or game 3, but we took care of business here. Good game from everyone except for CJ, who didn't play all that well. But yeah, that was definitely a solid game for us as we take a 3-1 lead on the Boston Celtics. So now trying to close this series on their home floor. The Celtics are not going to make it easy for us, especially with the home court advantage. But nice step back and drive right there for Paul George with that nifty little scoop shot. Tatum with the pull-up three-pointer out of the pick and roll because this team is just the king of making pull-up three-pointers. Tough pull-up in the lane from Jason Tatum that manages to drop. Dragic with the late pass to Ben Simmons, but Robert Williams gets caught out of position, so that's an easy dunk. Fadeaway right there by Paul George. I'm good for like 1 to 2 post fades a game for Paul George. Nice to get a little bit of Kobe on. Reverse dunk on the baseline. Speaking of getting my Kobe on, that was a beautiful play right there. On the break, Jaylen Brown with the lob to Jason Tatum. Grant is able to get past Tatum with this nice dunk. That one he threw down rather tenaciously. Another fadeaway, this time out of the step back out of the post for Paul George. And then right here on this drive to CJ. Really shouldn't have shot that, but it went in. So, I mean, I guess I should have. But that shot does not go in 90% of the time. Open three-pointer there from Drew Holiday. It's nice to see him score. Doesn't do it too often as he's basically devolved into point guard Draymond Green for us. Not that that's not a very valuable contributor, but he's not showing up in the box score all that much, at least in the scoring department. Again, Kemba refuses to step up on CJ, so that's a free 3 points. Pull up right there. Speaking of not stepping up, nice pull up there from Jason Tatum. Ben Simmons passes this to Paul George on the fast break. Step back, move, green release over Jason Tatum. That was a ballsy-ass shot, and it manages to drop. And then you can't leave Gary Trent wide open. What the hell is that, man? I mean, I guess the other option was a Drew Holiday layup, but you can't do that. You also can't put Carson Edwards on a 6'9" Paul George. That resulted in an easy three-point play. Nurkic is not able to step up close enough on that three-pointer by Gary Trent, as that's a green release. Green release for CJ out of the pick and roll. Tatum, wide open three-pointer. That one drops, which is getting the lead slightly less big, but then Paul George drops his three-pointer of his own. Paul George with the drive on Porter, kicks that out to a wide open Grant who drops that three-pointer right there. Tatum, another three-pointer off of the screen. He's doing everything he can. He had a good game here, but as you can tell by the lead late, this game, lob right there. That one's just a disrespectful play late in the game as they try and play full court defense. This game was not too difficult, and after a horrible game 1, 4-0. So, yeah, I guess we just suck in game ones, but then the rest of the series we have completely handled. So, I mean, we held the Celtics to 34% shooting, great defense, really good team effort. And our next matchup is the team that I fear more than any other team in this conference, the Atlanta Hawks. So that should be fun.